Every single Bitcoin has an origin story, but it doesn't just pop into your wallet when you hit buy on an exchange. It's not printed by a government or stamped in a factory. No, the birth of a Bitcoin is way more dramatic, a lot stranger, and infinitely more interesting. When you first heard about Bitcoin mining, you probably pictured something like a digital gold rush, virtual pickaxes chipping away at computer code. The reality, though, is a world of high stakes computation, unbreakable math, and a global, decentralized race that uses staggering amounts of energy. A Bitcoin is born in this race, travels through a global network that everyone can see, and gets recorded in an unchangeable public ledger that will probably outlast us all. So, what does that journey actually look like? Let's trace the secret life of a single Bitcoin. From the second it's created in a high tech mining farm to the moment it lands in a regular person's digital wallet. By the end, you'll get the complex, fascinating path this digital money takes before you can ever spend it. To get why something as wild and complex as Bitcoin was ever invented, we have to look at the world it was meant to fix. Think about the money in your bank account. It feels real, right? It feels like it's yours. But how much control do you really have over it? The financial system we use every day is built on one thing: trust. We trust banks to hold our money. We trust governments not to print so much that it becomes worthless. We trust credit card companies to handle our payments. In every single financial move we make, we're relying on a trusted third party. For the most part, this system works, but it has some deep, fundamental flaws. Central banks can create money from thin air, a process that often leads to inflation, silently eating away at the savings you worked so hard for. Banks can fail, and sometimes they take people's life savings down with them. Transactions can be blocked, accounts frozen, and entire countries can be cut off from the global financial system for political reasons. The 2008 financial crisis was a brutal reminder of this, where the very institutions we trusted to manage our wealth brought the global economy to its knees. This system is centralized. It has gatekeepers, and with that comes control, censorship, and single points of failure. The money you think you own is really just a number in a bank's private ledger, and your access to it is a privilege, not a right. So, what if you could build a system of money that didn't need a third party, a system where you didn't have to ask permission to spend your own money? What if you could build a financial network that was open to everyone, controlled by no one, and secured not by companies or governments, but by the laws of math? This was the radical idea that set the stage for Bitcoin. In October 2008, in the smoldering ashes of the global financial meltdown, a mysterious figure known as Satoshi Nakamoto published a 9-page white paper. It was a blueprint for a new kind of money, a peer to peer electronic cash system, and it would give birth to the very first Bitcoin. So, to understand how our Bitcoin is born, we need to understand the world it's born into. Satoshi Nakamoto's blueprint described a technology we now call the blockchain. And the concept, when you strip away the jargon, is beautifully simple. Imagine a public notebook, a digital ledger. This notebook isn't owned by a bank or a government. Instead, every person who uses the network has an identical copy. When someone wants to make a transaction, they announce it to the whole network. That transaction is then gathered up, checked by everyone, and written down on a new page of this shared notebook. Each page in the notebook is called a block. A block is just a list of transactions. Once a page is full and verified, it gets added to the end of the notebook. But here's the magic trick. Each new page, each new block is cryptographically chained to the page before it. Think of it like a unique, unbreakable seal. Page 200 contains a digital fingerprint of page 199. Page 199 has a fingerprint of page 198, and so on, all the way back to the very first page. This creates a chain of blocks, a blockchain. Why is this so important? Because it makes the history of transactions immutable, unchangeable. If you wanted to go back and fraudulently change a transaction on, say, page 50, you'd have to change its digital fingerprint. But since that fingerprint is part of page 51, you'd break the seal on page 51. So you'd have to change that one too, which would break page 52 and on, all the way to the present. You'd have to rewrite hundreds of thousands of pages, all while the rest of the world is busy adding new pages to the real notebook. It's computationally impossible. This elegant system is built on three key ingredients. First, cryptography, the art of secure communication, which acts as the lock and key for every transaction. Second, a network of computers, thousands of them spread across the globe, all holding a copy of the ledger and working together. That's what makes it decentralized. There's no central server to hack. And third, the protocol, a strict set of rules baked into the code that everyone agrees to follow. This is the digital universe that Satoshi designed, transparent, decentralized, and unchangeable. But it left two huge questions. In a system with no boss, who gets to add the next page to the notebook? And more importantly for our story, where do new bitcoins actually come from? The answer to both is a process called mining. Now that we have the blueprint, let's watch our Bitcoin be born. Forget pickaxes. Modern Bitcoin mining happens in vast, sterile data centers, usually in places with cheap electricity. Picture warehouses the size of football fields filled with humming, purpose-built computers called ASICs. They are designed to do one thing and one thing only: mine Bitcoin. The noise is deafening, the heat is intense, and the energy consumed rivals that of entire countries. This is the forge where new Bitcoins are made. The process of mining is really just a giant, continuous global lottery that happens roughly every 10 minutes. Here's how it works. It all starts in the mempool. Think of it as a massive global waiting room for unconfirmed transactions. When you send Bitcoin, your transaction goes into this mempool. The miners, these powerful computers, peek into this waiting room and select a batch of transactions to put into their candidate block, the next potential page. Who do they pick? Usually, they prioritize transactions with the highest attached fees because those fees are part of their reward. Once a miner has assembled its block, the real race begins. This is the heart of Bitcoin security, known as proof of work. To earn the right to add their block to the chain, a miner has to solve an incredibly difficult cryptographic puzzle. Now, this isn't a Sudoku puzzle. It's more like trying to guess a specific lottery number. The ASIC machines are guessing a number called a nonce, trillions of times per second. They take the data in their block, add a random nonce, and mash it all together using an algorithm called SHA-256. The goal is to produce a hash, a long string of letters and numbers that starts with a specific, very large number of zeros. The first miner whose computer guesses a nonce that produces that target hash wins the race. The whole point of this puzzle is to make the process difficult, expensive, and time-consuming. It proves the miner spent real-world resources, electricity, and computing power to win. This work is what secures the network and makes it insanely expensive for a bad actor to try and take over. To keep the race fair and on schedule, the network's difficulty automatically adjusts every 2016 blocks, which works out to roughly every 2 weeks, to ensure that a new block is found on average every 10 minutes. No matter how many miners are competing, then it happens. In a warehouse somewhere in the world, one single ASIC gets lucky. It finds a nonce that produces a winning hash. The machine basically shouts "Eureka!" to the entire network, broadcasting its completed block as the solution. Now comes the easy part, checking the answer. All the other computers on the network quickly verify the miner's work. Is the hash correct? Are the transactions valid? In seconds, thousands of independent nodes around the world reach a consensus. The block is valid. It's officially added to everyone's copy of the blockchain. The chain is now one block longer. And for all that work, the winning miner gets their reward. The reward has two parts: all the transaction fees they collected, and more importantly, a special transaction called a Coinbase transaction. This transaction pays them a fixed amount of brand new Bitcoin that never existed before. And right there, in that Coinbase transaction, our Bitcoin is born. It's one tiny fraction of the block reward. As of the halving in April 2024, that reward is 3.125 Bitcoins. Our Bitcoin, just a string of code, now exists. It has no physical form, but it's real, secure, and officially recorded on the global ledger. It sits in the winning miner's digital wallet, its origin story complete. So our Bitcoin exists. But why is it worth anything? Why would giant companies spend billions on hardware and electricity for just over 3 digital coins? The answer is in the core economic principles that Satoshi coded into Bitcoin's DNA. Unlike government currencies, which can be printed without limit, Bitcoin is fundamentally scarce. Its supply is finite and predictable. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin, not one more. That number is hard-coded into the protocol. This makes Bitcoin a deflationary asset, more like digital gold than a national currency. This scarcity is enforced by a brilliant pre-programmed mechanism known as the halving. Every 10,000 blocks mined, roughly every 4 years, the block reward paid to miners is cut in half. When Bitcoin launched in 2009, the reward was 50 BTC. After the 2012 halving, it dropped to 25 BTC. After the 2016 halving, it dropped to 12.5 BTC. After the 2020 halving, it dropped to 6.25 BTC. And after the most recent halving in April 2024, the reward that created our Bitcoin was cut to 3.125 BTC. This will continue until around the year 2140, when the final pieces of the 21 millionth Bitcoin are mined. After that, no new Bitcoin will ever be created. Miners will only be paid with transaction fees. The halving is a slow, steady, predictable squeeze on the new supply of Bitcoin. It's monetary policy run by an algorithm, not a committee. Each halving creates a supply shock. Historically, these events have been linked to big jumps in Bitcoin's price. The logic is simple. If demand for something stays steady or grows while the new supply gets cut in half, the price tends to go up. So our newborn Bitcoin isn't just random data. Its value is backed by digitally enforced scarcity. It's a tiny piece of a finite pie in a world of infinite money printing. Our Bitcoin, born in a blaze of computation, isn't going to sit in the miner's wallet forever. That mining operation has massive bills, electricity, hardware, salaries, so its journey into the real world is about to begin. The miner needs to sell their new Bitcoin for cash, like US dollars, to pay their bills. They'll use a cryptocurrency exchange. The miner initiates a transfer from their wallet to the exchange. This transaction is broadcast, enters the mempool, gets picked up by another miner, and is confirmed in a new block. Ownership has officially moved. Our Bitcoin now sits in a wallet controlled by the exchange. At the same time, let's meet Alice. She's been reading about Bitcoin and decides she wants to buy some. Alice opens an account on the same exchange, deposits her dollars, and places a buy order. The exchange's trading engine matches Alice's buy order with the miner's sell order, and the trade happens instantly. The dollars go to the miner, and our Bitcoin is now in Alice's account on the exchange. For many people, this is where the story ends. But there's a saying in the Bitcoin world, not your keys, not your coins. While the Bitcoin is on the exchange, Alice doesn't truly control it. The exchange holds the private keys. If the exchange gets hacked, goes bankrupt, or freezes her account, she could lose everything. So Alice decides to take self-custody. This is the final, most important step. She wants her Bitcoin in a wallet that only she controls. She could use a software wallet on her phone, a hot wallet, or for maximum security, a hardware wallet, a small USB-like device that keeps her private keys completely offline, a cold wallet. Alice generates a new receiving address from her hardware wallet and pastes it into the withdrawal field on the exchange. She confirms the transaction. Once again, a message is broadcast to the network. Move this Bitcoin from the exchange's address to Alice's new address. The transaction gets picked up by a miner, added to a block, and confirmed. A few minutes later, it's done. Our Bitcoin has completed its journey, from creation in a miner's wallet to the marketplace of an exchange, and finally to the secure vault of Alice's personal wallet. It is now hers and hers alone. Only the person with the private keys can ever move it. Its entire life story is there for the world to see, forever recorded on the blockchain. This whole elaborate process might still seem abstract. What gives a string of code real-world value? There's no better example than the story of Laszlo Hanyecz. On May 22, 2010, way back in Bitcoin's early days, Hanyecz, a programmer, made a post on a public forum. He offered 10,000 Bitcoins to anyone who would order and deliver 2 large pizzas to his house. At the time, his 10,000 Bitcoins were worth maybe $41. A teenager in Britain took the offer, ordered him some Papa John's, and the first ever real-world Bitcoin transaction was complete. Today, those 10,000 Bitcoins would be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. That transaction is now legendary. May 22nd is celebrated as Bitcoin Pizza Day. The story perfectly shows how value is created. It starts as a novelty, an experiment. But as more people learn about the technology, as they start to believe in the ideas of decentralization and provable scarcity, adoption grows. The network gets more secure, the user base expands, and the belief in its future value becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Those pizzas were the first small step, proving that these digital tokens could actually bridge the gap between the virtual and real worlds. So, the secret life of a Bitcoin is anything but simple. It starts as a prize in a relentless global competition to secure a network. Its value is protected by the elegant certainty of math and the unbreakable promise of scarcity. And its journey is forever etched onto an immutable public ledger as it travels across the world into someone's custody. From a clever idea in a white paper, to a reward in a digital lottery, to a slice of a new financial system, every Bitcoin tells a story. And for the world's first truly decentralized digital money, that story is just getting started.